Well, thanks for having me again. I was lucky enough to be able to speak at this event last year on this a similar topic, this coming wave of automation, and quite a bit has changed. As Lee said, this space is moving very, very fast, and the question came up: is there a company that is not going to be impacted dramatically by digital transformation? And I just can't think of a company that would be. My company, KPMG, we're a 130-year-old audit firm. We do public accounting. We've done it the same way since the 1800s. We land people on accounts. We go through reams and reams of documents and records and identify problems, raise those to the executives of the company, and then formulate plans to fix those problems. That's changing, and it's changing fast. We've started a program at KPMG to introduce cognitive technology, artificial intelligence, to begin to automate a lot of that work. First time in 130 years that we've introduced a technology like that into our core business. And our projections are it's going to be a radical change in the next 5 to 10 years. So the world is changing fast. We're right in the middle of it. It's never hit an industry like ours that's been so knowledge-oriented like this in the past. So when we talk about automation, we're talking about taking human mental capacity and judgment and decisions that have been relied upon for years through very highly educated and skilled personnel and begin to teach algorithms to do a lot of the work that those humans do. Fortunately, it's typically the boring, repetitive work that humans don't like to do. When we recruit out of the top schools, they don't like going in and doing controls tests and doing ticking and tying documents. They want to go solve the problems. So our point of view is that this is going to be very positive. This is going to create many more jobs than it will destroy. But there are a lot of questions. I'm going to stick to my time and get through this really quickly, and I'm going to cover a few just major points. One, this is massively disruptive. This is the most disruptive thing that we'll ever see in our lifetime. The notion of automating knowledge work is profound, and this will be accelerating as we move forward. There's not a choice whether you do this or not. This is going to happen. We're seeing competitors pop up from areas that we would never think of a competitor to a firm like ours. Typically, they're coming out of Silicon Valley. They're very small. They're in the form of an app, and it begins to erode away our business. The same is happening with every business. And the notion of artificial intelligence means that we have to think differently. We have to think in terms of how to protect business, how to protect society, how to think about how do we think about jobs. Demographics are changing, and it's going to be needed. But we're going to have to think of ourselves more as a partner with technology than we have in the past. I've had our creative team look at this. This is a complex issue. It's a complex discussion to have. Our creative team put a 2-minute video together, 2-minute and 20-second video together to try and encapsulate what all this means, and I think it's pretty good. If you guys can cue up the video.
Brains. Yes, that gray and white between your ears that matter. Arguably one of your most important assets. These brains have been responsible for some pretty amazing life improvements throughout the years, like this, and yes, even this. Then came along human brains like these and gave birth to these brains, computer brains. Back then, as with any unfamiliar thingamajig, it was scary at first. But humans adapted, as humans do, and life went on. Along the way, brains like these evolved these brains even further, allowing them to mimic human activities and take over repeated tasks. Things like this and this. In the near future, They may be programmed to do things like this and this, but probably not this. And while many of these easily bored brains would say, good riddance, it's caused these curious brains to think, will I still have a job tomorrow? Or will robots take over the world? Yes, jobs will change, and there will be painful dislocations in the short term. But our lives will be radically transformed for the better. After all, who wants to do the boring or dangerous work? Not these brains. Instead, they'll be freed up to do the more important thinking. And these robot brains will get to do the more menial and mundane thinking. Companies will no longer have to waste resources and talent on low-level jobs that produce little value. They can now invest in new technologies, making the world more efficient, safer, and generally a better place to live. Yes, the cognitive era is upon us, and one thing's for sure, human brains aren't becoming obsolete anytime soon. They still need to invent and build these other systems, interpret their findings, evolve them, and keep them in line. Our brains will never stop questioning. For starters, what does all this automation mean? How do we plan for change? And how do we get ahead of it? We might not have all the answers now, but we're figuring it out, just like we've always done before, by putting our heads together and thinking forward.
So, if you look at the headlines, and this came from the World Economic Forum at Davos this year. The entire topic was around this fourth industrial revolution. The headlines are very dramatic. Massive job loss, massive unemployment, the impact of artificial intelligence totally disrupting every aspect of business. But what they don't talk about are the massive changes to the demographics that are taking place around the world. We have a contracting working age population in every major country. If you look at countries like Germany and countries like Japan, Japan's been contracting for more than a decade. Germany's been contracting. The U.S. has had declining job growth for a period of time, and I'll get into that. But when we talk about how the cognitive technologies are beginning to replace or augment these jobs, what we're really referring to are the technologies that simulate how a human will make a decision. So these are forms of artificial intelligence. These are algorithms that interpret natural language and understand context through semantic engines. They use Bayesian statistical models to infer a probable outcome. What makes these technologies possible today is massive computing power at a low cost that just wasn't available 10 years ago. The algorithms have been there, the technologies and concept have been there, but it's getting better, faster, and cheaper to employ. We're experiencing, training these algorithms to understand the U.S. tax code, to teach the U.S. tax code, and then run scenarios against the tax code and the laws and the adjudications to determine whether a scenario would be within or outside the bounds of the tax code. Same with GAAP accounting, Sarbanes-Oxley, some of the regulatory regimes that are very complex. They have a lot of moving parts. When you get into international trade and global treaties, those will impact local regulations, safe harbor. These are where cognitive technologies are really helpful. When we start talking about why this is needed, you really have to understand and get into the demographics. Take a look at this chart. These are the 4 largest economies in the world: China, Japan, U.S., and Germany. This is a 100-year view of the global demographics, and you can see the baby boom in the U.S. You can see China's one-child policy and the impact that that's having. This is That orange starts in 2015 for China. You can see Japan. They've been contracting for a long time, and Germany's in trouble as well. This is working age population. This does not mean that people leave the system. This means that there is less working people to support the retirees as healthcare costs go up and the lifespan is longer. So technology is going to be required to augment productivity and offset this. So, the jobs are not going to, the bodies are not going to be there to fill the jobs that are going to need to be available to support this. So how do we address this? We have to innovate, and this is something that we do very well. If you look at when we were an agrarian economy, in 1890 in 1800 rather, that was 90% of our jobs. 1900 it was 42% of our jobs. Today it's 2% of our jobs. We move forward. The same fears that people have today around automation taking their jobs and creating mass unemployment in dystopian societies, those all happened before. We had the Luddites back in, when the textile industry automated. So you have those fears and you have those discussions today, but the automation creates new opportunities, and we're starting to see how that will play out now. You look at the self-driving cars. You look at changes in logistics. You look at the opportunities that artificial intelligence opens up, and we have to have conversations around how to build a business model around these changes. When you're thinking about a digital strategy, and I don't know if I know the term digital is becoming a little bit of a buzzword, but the way I think of digital is a technology-centric business model. KPMG is an example of 170,000 employees. It's a very people-driven model. Our revenue is correlated directly to headcount growth. In a digital world, that decouples, and revenue and profit is not directly correlated to headcount growth. That changes a lot of things. How do you deal with regulatory and regulation and compliance and security? When you start talking about AI, particularly the type of AI that we're starting to see in labs right now that have recursive self-improvement capabilities, that's where it gets scary, and you have to be able to set boundaries and have the guardrails, because as the Internet of Things actually puts devices in the control of the Internet, and as artificial intelligence begins to control more of those devices, with recursive self-improvement built into the code, it means massive improvement and exponential improvement in the capabilities of the technology and the artificial intelligence. But there has to be governance in place to prevent hackers from getting a hold of it, or unintended consequences of self-learning technology. The business model itself has to change. How do you deal with the people? What type of recruiting organization are you going to have that recruits in a new world? In our firm, we start thinking our recruiting process starts 3 years before we hire a new associate coming out of school. Things are changing too fast to be to have that kind of model. We don't know exactly what 3 years is going to look like right now. It is moving at an exponential pace. But let's talk a little bit about workforce enablement. One of the things that we're trying to do is turn the conversation away from fear with our employees and really start to drive innovation, and really start to put innovation at the core of our strategy and our operating model. We have a new CEO, and that's one of the tenets of KPMG strategy is innovation. It gets a lot of funding, We've set up labs where we're experimenting and testing. This is something in a firm like mine is very unique, and it's very new to have resources on this scale dedicated to innovation and driving technology change. So how do you plan for the changes to the workforce, and how do you teach the workforce to innovate? When you're thinking about the operating models that digital labor presents, you're going to have to think about entire new ways to engage customers, to engage the business. Jim was talking about mobile technology and how Uberization is a real thing. The way you engage your employees, the way you engage your customers, the way you engage your suppliers and build an ecosystem of capabilities is, these are real questions that almost every single business has to think about. We've seen very traditional brick and mortar businesses in the last 5 years move to digital businesses just because of the availability of mobile and cloud computing. Cloud computing gives them massive processing power on demand. Mobile computing connects them to the customer no matter where they are and gives them massive amounts of data. So building an operating model that is different and perhaps can run parallel to a current operating model while the transformation takes place. The business model itself, what type of company are you going to look like? If a good example would be the auto industry in an age of autonomous cars, and this would probably be good to chat with Jim about. But in a world where you have Uber aggressively building autonomous cars, and the projections being that we will have a sizable percentage of self-driving cars on city streets within 6 years, what does that do to the auto industry? When people don't need to buy cars, they just summon up a driverless car, they pay for it as a subscription, the miles they use. It takes a lot of the slack out of the system. You're taking unutilized cars that are sitting in driveways and they're going away. Traffic on the streets clear up. What type of opportunities does all that present? And how long does it take to build a business around that? But what does that do when you're talking about going from, we have about, our roads, our highways kill about 40,000 people a year just in the U.S. And the U.S. is one of the safer driving countries in the world. Most estimates believe that will be dropped down to about 4,000 deaths with self-driving cars. What does that mean to society as a whole? What does that mean to the auto parts industry that gets a lot of its money by supplying auto parts to fender benders, replacing cars? I mean, there's so many questions that have to be asked. That's just one example of one industry that's being disrupted. When we talk about regulatory and compliance, security is a huge topic. As companies go more digital, the opportunities for hackers, for rogue nations to get in and create mischief just rises exponentially. So the security questions have to be answered, as well as the technology questions around, what does AI mean? What does artificial intelligence and cognitive computing mean? How are we going to govern this, or do we have a choice? Just because the U.S. might enact a law or regulation governing it doesn't mean that that's going to apply to 150 other nations with the capability to release these types of algorithms out on the internet. It is a global concern. It's a global question, and there's got to be a more robust discussion at a policy level, at a global policy level, because having seen how these technologies are working right now today in our company, this is here and now, and it's moving pretty quickly. In our case, we're using IBM's Watson technology, and we're teaching Watson how to understand our business. We're building the corpus of data, the corpora of data. which range from accounting rules to laws to treaties to small little rules around transaction analysis. And then teaching algorithms within the Watson platform, building on their APIs to address each one of those. The way we're approaching it is use case by use case. We're starting with 5 use cases that are small, they're narrow, they're strategic, but we'll be able to build on those use cases as they go forward. And my belief is that within 5 years, it will be a completely different business. We'll be operating in areas that we haven't operated in the past due to the accessibility to our knowledge capital and IP that will be encoded in a technology instead of having to reside in a partner's head that has to land on the ground that you pay by the hour for. So this is about innovation. This is a discussion about innovation. The discussions that I hope you guys take back to your organizations are going to be around the importance of innovation. And we don't know where the next 10 years are going to take us. We don't have a crystal ball, but we know that there are a lot of innovators here and within these companies that will likely drive us forward.